Hello everybody, we've decided to film one extra video in our series about the coronavirus and the 10 terrains. And the reason we're doing this is because we've been doing a lot of radio interviews lately, and all the interviewers have been asking us the same question. Could you please explain what is happening in the world right now by reference to the 10 terrains model? So we decided to cover that in today's video because we're hoping that it'll be helpful for all of you guys too. So because the Western world has been at Diamond since about the 1960s, a lot of issues and challenges have built up within the collective. And some of these are starting to come to the surface now to be shifted to ready us as a collective civilization to start the long journey from Diamond to Circle. And that's what's happening now.
But what happens is there's a moment where a shift occurs to bring you toward the next terrain. And that shift is oftentimes a disruption in your life or a disruption in the collective if we're talking about the prevailing terrain. And that's what we're seeing now on the planet with the COVID. It's actually causing a collective disruption. And that collective disruption has caused a quieting that is actually then forcing everyone to shift slightly.
Right now on the planet, since probably the 1960s, the Western world has been at the prevailing terrain of Diamond, the reflection-based terrain. And we can see this in so many things in our culture. So many of the positives and the negatives. The positives, freedom of information, the internet, the invention of the internet, decentralization of information and news, entrepreneurialism, innovation in art and culture, new social systems, technological innovations, incredible discoveries, freedom of speech, diversity in art and music and movies and culture, individual expression, people forging their own path, gender exploration, new kinds of thinking, disruptive technologies like Uber that take the power out of the hands of centralized systems like taxis or banking and give them back to the people in a more distributed way. So there's so many positives that have come out of Diamond, but there's also been a shadow side to the fact that as a collective we've been at the prevailing terrain of Diamond, and that's been a great deal of disconnection. Disconnection from our bodies, disconnection from our hearts, disconnection from our community, disconnection from nature, because Diamond is a terrain of the mind and human ingenuity and innovation and invention. But a culture at Diamond is not yet at a point where it is coming from deep interconnectedness. And what happens at the next terrain after Diamond, the connection-based terrain Circle, is a shift from head to heart, from doing to being, from outer to inner, and from fear to love. And when a culture is at Circle, the connection-based terrain, it's much more interconnected, connected to nature, working in a collaborative space, making sure that all people are looked after, even the most vulnerable people, and there's so much deep connection to self and to community. And the thing is, in a person's individual life, to get them to shift from pyramid to square or square to diamond, it's a big change. I mean, often people will stay at the same terrain for decades and then something massive happens in their life to get them to start that journey. It's the same for a civilization. For a civilization to start that journey from square to diamond or from diamond to circle, you're going to need something big to happen. And we really feel that what's happening in the world today is of sufficient massive agitation to create this kind of collective evolutionary shift. And a lot of people are feeling this. A lot of the people that we're talking to in our interviews are saying to us, I feel like there's a big shift happening, but it's very unpleasant. And yes, it is unpleasant. When a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, it's not a fun process. Everything melts down into a soup and then the butterfly emerges from that soup. That's what's happening at the moment. The people at Pyramid are being agitated and they're starting to shift towards Square. The people at Square are being really agitated with all of the rules and the social distancing and the masks and the impact it's having on freedom, and some of them are starting to shift to Diamond. The people at Diamond who were already in the process of moving, their whole lives have been quietened down and they've been given an invitation to come into peace and stillness and an inner process. The people at Circle are being invited to move to Spiral and to start to do the deeper work of taking responsibility for the reality that's showing up in their life and to start to look at the things that are being triggered within them during this coronavirus crisis. Everybody at every point along this continuum is being agitated and stirred up at the moment. And that's part of this massive collective shift that's happening, that's just starting from Diamond towards Circle. And so many people can feel the truth of that. We can feel how disconnected we've been as a society, as so much of our energy has been focused outwards on identity, on image, on career, on achievement, on advancement, on growth, on expansion. These are all great, wonderful diamond ideals, but there's a downside of them, which is at a cost of disconnection. And a lot of people have been feeling that in our culture. Disconnection from the earth, which has led to environmental degradation. Disconnection from our community, which has led to breakdowns in emotional health, in mental health. Disconnection in families, which has led to huge amounts of suffering. Disconnection from the self and from the body, which has led to breakdowns in health. Disconnection from our infinite self, which has led to a huge spiritual crisis that people have been facing in their lives over the last few decades. And everything that's happening right now, the magnitude of the confusion is a reflection of that disconnection. Because to move from diamond to circle takes a great awakening. It takes a great self-realization as a collective. And this is a moment in time where there's a huge opportunity to look at what we can create as a society to become more connected again, to come more into community, to come more into self-reflection, to come more into inner peace, to come more into our feminine, to come more into our heart, to come more into connection as a community. That's the opportunity that's happening here right now.
And it's really important to realize that as infinite consciousness, there's a much greater event happening here than any individual can perceive. Imagine if I were to have a treadmill with the top going this way and then it goes around and the bottom's going back this way. Well, to the individual ego, to the individual perception, it all seems like we're all kind of going backwards and upside down, but the reality is the spirit that is driving it is actually going toward our infinite self and taking us there. So what it takes is a certain awareness to see the bigger picture, to understand that even though there's chaos in the moment, there's a driver above that that's actually bringing it to greater order, and that greater order is to our spiritual integration. So man thinks he's in control, but at the end of the day, infinite consciousness is playing man like puppets, and we're just being run around like chickens right now, thinking everything's falling apart. But actually, it's really, if you could imagine a picture dissolving into another picture, as Tanya indicates, as it goes from one phase to the next, it all looks discombobulated, but then it comes out clear again. So we're really going from point to point, and we're going through a transformation of consciousness at this time. And this event on the planet is just really the catalyst for that all to happen.
And from the perspective of the fractal-based terrain, toroid, where we stand back and we look from the perspective of the highest good of all, if you were going to create something that would cause a massive global shift from diamond to circle, or the beginning of that journey of that shift, this is the most efficient thing that consciousness could have orchestrated to enable that to happen. I can't think of anything more effective than shutting the entire world down for a period of months and causing everybody to sit with their own stuff without being able to distract themselves from it like they normally do. It's actually an incredibly efficient event when you step back and you look from the perspective of toroid. But when you come down and look at it from the perspective of pyramid or square or diamond or circle or spiral, we have to also have compassion for the suffering that's happening on an individual level as people's lives are being affected, their businesses are being shut down, they're in terrible dramas with their families that they're stuck in lockdown with, or they've lost their job. So we can hold compassion for the individual suffering that people are going through in this time, while still holding the larger perspective from toroid that shows that this is all happening for the highest good of all, and it's actually an incredibly efficient process to shift us as a collective from disconnection to connection, from diamond to circle.
One thing I find fascinating in watching world events is the players that are thinking they're trying to control narratives and bring things back to a place of dominance actually don't realize that there's a counter effect happening as a result of their action. As they say in physics, to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So there's certain pharmaceutical giants that want to vaccinate everyone. There are certain economic interests that want to try and shift the global money system to something else. They're creating a lot of disruption with the idea, in their understanding, that they're going to be able to force it to go one way. But in the reality of life, it's actually going to take it in the opposite direction at the end of the day. You've got a group of people that are at square doing as they're told because they feel safe being guided as a collective by authority. You've got at diamond people that are thinking for themselves, doing their own research, questioning the official narrative, because there's a lot of evidence that there's a lot of holes in what the government is telling us to do. And so there's a tug-of-war happening between square and diamond. And then in addition to that, you've got at pyramid power factions that have been for millennia running things from behind the scenes, trying to pull everybody back from questioning by censoring. There's a lot of censorship happening now because they don't want the diamond narrative to get out. They want to keep square thinking what they're being told is the truth. And so anything that contravenes that truth is being censored. At pyramid, you've got this group looking to pull everybody back into compliance. But all the way down here at infinity, you've got spirit, the infinite intelligence we all are, the infinite consciousness we all are, pulling the entire collective, all of humanity, all of us on this journey of spiritual evolution. And so there's this tug of war happening, and it's a Star Wars scale epic tug of war happening between those that are trying to control from will and spirit, which is really playing all of us and has the best for all of us, the best of life in mind, the best for everyone's evolution in mind, and it's really controlling it from the biggest picture. So what we're really seeing is a setup to move all of humanity from the head to the heart, the biggest jump that we'll ever experience, from the reflection-based terrain to the connection-based terrain.
So I'm just going to explain briefly how an individual shifts terrain, because then it will make sense when we talk about how a collective civilization shifts terrain. So how a person shifts terrain is they're going about their life, and then over time, some things start to happen in their life. Their awareness expands as some sort of massive cataclysm sometimes, or a big thing happens in their life, which causes their awareness to expand. And the metaphor we like to use for this is a valley and another valley and a big mountain in between. So let's say you're going along in your life and you're a diamond, and here's a circle. And one day some stuff starts to happen in your life. You're really questioning everything. You're starting to totally change your perspective of yourself and your life. And in an evolutionary sense, you start this journey up the mountain. So many things are going to happen as you're learning and growing and you're traveling. You get to the top of this mountain, you can see the next terrain down below. You're starting to have a feeling for what might be coming in your life. And then as you're going further and further in your journey, you're accelerating faster and faster until you land in the next terrain. And it's like being in a whole new world. And you're like, wow, everything's completely different here in this new valley. That is what happens as a person shifts from one terrain to the next. And the same thing happens as a collective, as a country or a civilization shifts from one terrain to the next. They're in their valley, and then one day something happens that causes them to wake up and start to shift and start to go on this long journey up the mountain to the next terrain. So what we really want to clarify here is we're not saying that everyone in the world is at diamond moving to circle right now during coronavirus. That is clearly not true. We've done a series of videos showing you that people are at every different terrain responding to this crisis. What we're saying is that the prevailing terrain in the Western world, and the prevailing terrain is the thing that creates the culture, creates the norms, creates the laws, creates the civilization, creates the kind of art, movies, technology we have. The collective culture is currently just having its little wake-up call to start its journey towards circle. But not everybody is at diamond, moving to circle. But the thing is, the people who were in their individual journey, who are at the moment currently on that mountain journey from diamond to circle, as a result of what's happening in this current epidemic, they are running faster down that mountain than they would have if COVID hadn't happened. The people that were already moving from diamond to circle are moving faster because the world has shut down, everything's been turned off, and they're being forced to go inwards into their being, into their body, into their relationships with their family, into their inner self, into their own healing. And that is causing the people that were already in that journey from doing to being and from head to heart to speed up. And the momentum of that affects the entire collective in a particular way that Alan's going to describe now.
Well, imagine we're in a movie theater. There's 10 rows representing the 10 terrains and 10 seats across representing the 10 spots across each of those terrains individually. So you've got 100 people sitting in this theater, and everybody takes one move to the left. They move one seat to the left, which means that the people in the back row, one person's going to have to then move up a row to the next row in front of them And the person at the end of the next row is going to have to move up and move up, as you can imagine, until the person in the front row is now standing up. So the entire movie theater has moved one seat. It's not like everybody's sitting in the row at diamond and then all of us just jumped up to the next row in a circle. So it's actually all of us collectively doing little movements, little trim tabs, little shifts individually, but the collective has made a titanic shift as a result.
And there's a really beautiful opportunity here for those of you who are watching this video who've done our quiz at 10terrains.com and discovered that you are yourself at the connection-based terrain circle, or maybe even you're at spiral or toroid, because there is a collective shift that is just in its beginning stages of bringing us from diamond to circle as a culture. And once we get there, we're going to need people who are already living there, who are already embodying it, who are already modeling that way of living. And those of you who are already at circle, who are already living in alternative communities based on collaboration, connectedness to self, connectedness to nature, heart-based living, love-based living, you guys are going to be really important as the collective of the Western world starts to come up this mountain and over towards circle. They're going to need guidance. They're going to need new economic systems, new social systems, new ways of interacting with nature that are more sustainable. All of these things are going to be needed as our civilization moves from diamond to circle. So I really want to put a call out to those of you who are already at circle to keep doing what you're doing, keep creating the systems you're creating, building the alternative ways to live, because you are going to be the way showers in the next 40 or 50 years as our civilization shifts into circle. And those of you who are beyond circle, who are living at spiral or at toroid or at infinity, you're also going to have a huge role to play as way showers and as people who are holding the field stable at an awakened place to be able to be anchor points for people as they're moving along this journey.
The most important opportunity for those of you watching that are expanded is to really stay in the field of love, because the gravity of that vibration, the gravity of our affinity to our infinite self as one consciousness is going to pull the entire civilization toward us as a whole very quickly now. So very much be in faith of the infinite self that we all are, and really have faith in humanity. At the end of the day, as I've been saying, infinite consciousness is running this entire creation, and it will have us come home to who we already were, coming into our infinite power. So hold your infinite power.
And those of you who are at diamond, who are in the middle of this massive journey within your own spiritual evolution, from doing to being, from head to heart, from fear to love, from outer to inner, just know that you're actually on track with the rest of our society, and that as you start to shift towards circle, there are going to be systems in place to support you there. There's going to be lots of other people going through that same transition, so you're not alone in that. And there are actually large numbers of people in the middle of that journey right now, and just know you're not alone.
For those of you watching at radial, pyramid, and square, I also invite you to really hold love in your hearts and to really collectively have all of us looking toward our infinite self and looking toward our collective evolution. Even though you have work to do at your terrain that is keeping you at that point for a reason, it's important that we all, as E.T. would say, phone home. If we were to align ourselves to our infinite self and come to our unity, our oneness that we all are intrinsically within ourselves, we're going to find that the entire planet will heal very quickly.
We need everybody at each terrain. Everybody's role is important in the collective unfolding.
We all can collectively start to have compassion for each other, start to appreciate each other, and really start to model what it's going to be like to come into a connected, heart-centered civilization.
So really, today we're coming to you with a message of hope. Yes, it's a very difficult time, and a lot of people are experiencing huge upset and emotional distress and economic distress. But at the same time, if you take a step back and trust that this is all happening in the highest good of all, and that there is a much bigger spiritual perspective, and that there is actually a huge evolutionary shift that's taking place at the moment, and that if we can trust in that, it can bring us great peace even amidst all of the chaos. So that brings us to the end of this series about the 10 terrains and the coronavirus crisis. If you missed any of our earlier videos, we highly recommend you go back and watch them, because we actually went through all of the terrains and how people at each different terrain are responding to this crisis, and it will give you a much bigger perspective and a context for everything that we shared in this video. So if you haven't seen those videos yet, you can watch them here. And we just really hope that this series has helped give you some hope and also the ability to have greater compassion for yourself where you're at in this journey and for the other people in the world around you. And we want to invite you to go to 10terrains.com and do your quiz to find out which terrain you're at right now at this point in your life. It will give you so much insight and wisdom about where you're at in your journey, the lessons you're currently having to learn, the challenges you're having, and the gifts that you're here to give at this point in time.
It'll help you understand yourself and your spiritual journey, other people, and our world.
So thanks for watching this series. We hope you've enjoyed it, and stay tuned for our next video. Bye guys.
Bye.